Hey everyone, welcome to the 323rd episode of Just Shoot It, a podcast about filmmaking, screenwriting, and directing. This episode is brought to you by patron Tyler W. Small. I owe you an email, Tyler. I'm going to send it right now. You'll probably get it before this episode even comes out. I'm Warren Kaplan.
And I'm Matt Enlow. Today we've got Devin Nas on the show. Devin's got two films coming out simultaneously. One, Keeping Company, which is a dark horror comedy that's available on VOD across all the places that you normally watch movies. And then he's also got another film called Wes Schlagenhauf is Dying that is premiering at Tribeca this week.
But yeah, Keeping Company is really fun. They have a really fun cast. Mary Holland, a lot of cool people.
As I mentioned in the interview, Ahmed Barucha, Maureen's brother. Maureen Barucha, regular listeners will recognize her name. She's on the show all the time.
Leland Bowden. It's a whole UCB reunion in that movie.
The Murderer's Row. Wes Schlagenhauf also has a great cast. Aparna Nancherla, Darcy Carden, and Mr. Indie Film himself.
Duplass.
Duplass? Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's right. The commonality between these two films is that Devin is in both of them. He stars in both of them. Both of them are directed by different people. So that's kind of an interesting conversation. But he is the writer, actor, and producer, a major creative force on both of these films. So we dive in deep, talk about his history, kind of like moving out to Los Angeles, how he got into the comedy space, his roots at Funny or Die, and all the things he learned there, and how he leveraged that network into a pair of films, one of which is premiering at Tribeca, which is pretty darn cool. The different things he learned on making one film that's a little bit more traditional, quote unquote, and then one that's a little more meta, avant-garde, and mixed media, and the two approaches behind those films.
There were some things he said about festivals that are interesting to think about because they kind of buck conventional wisdom, and you might enjoy that part of the conversation. We'll see.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you don't enjoy it, it's fine because it's like an hour into the episode, so you'll already have given us what we need, which is, you know how in video you always say like, how many eyeballs can we get on this? Is when we say in podcasts, ear holes? That's all we care about is the ear holes. If you want to let us know, write us, justshootitpod@gmail.com. If you want to help pay for this podcast to continue existing, for us to pay our editor, us to pay for our server space, to keep us going, check out patreon.com/justshootitpod. And you can give us $1 a month, $2, $15, even one time for 1 month. We'll get you a Just Shoot It, the podcast hat, mailed to you by me. If you want, you can take the sweat off of the hat, extract some DNA, clone me, and have your very own Oren in a few years. Just, telling you pointless stories in your kitchen in the morning.
Yeah. So one time I was making a CPR video.
Oh, yeah. That's a good story. Should I jump into that before this interview? Or?
Yeah. We've got 30 minutes.
Anyway, 4 listeners, give or take 3, will get that joke. But without any further ado, because this is a long episode, we're going to just go right into the rest of the show. Okay, we're here with Devin Nas, filmmaker extraordinaire, writer, producer, actor, previous medical student, son of probably very disappointed parents.
Yes to all of that.
Wait, so you were pre-med though, so you hadn't gotten into medical school
Totally.
yet. So their hopes weren't too high.
No, I let him down early on. I didn't string him along too. I mean, I strung him along for 19 years of my life.
As the president of drama club in high school, I beg to differ. You can disappoint your parents much earlier than college.
My parents from a very early age were like, my dad is a doctor. He was like, just do what I tell you, be a doctor, and you'll live a good, stable life. Like, it was like very much that from like an early age. And like, so it just like instilled in me like, all right, just follow the path, And I never really thought about if I actually like gave a shit about it or like was interested in it. Growing up though, I was like very much a film nerd, very much a film and TV nerd. But I just like thought that was just like something I enjoyed. So then like when I was in college, I'm like straight up failing out of classes, like feeling this pressure of like, oh shit, I don't like any of this. And that's probably why I'm failing. What am I going to do? One thing led to another. I had a conversation, just a fateful conversation with a friend of mine who was studying communications at Indiana University. And that's where I was. And he was just like, yeah, I'm studying like film classes and stuff like that. And I don't know, I think I want to get into film. And I was just like, had so many questions for him. I was like, dude, what are you going to do for work? He's like, I'm going to try and like become a filmmaker. And it's like, of course I knew film schools existed and all that, but like for me, this was like such a foreign thing to like pursue because I just never gave it a thought.
What I noticed about your work, your 2 features, they're both comedies.
Yeah.
And I saw just from the casting of those movies, you have a lot of very funny people in them.
Yeah.
So clearly you're connected to some sort of like comedy community.
Yeah.
Matt makes fun of me for appreciating people that didn't go to film school, but I was an engineering major, but I always like loved comedy. You know, like I grew up on Mel Brooks, and
dude,
so
yes.
I think there's people that go in from like they're big film fans, kind of like Matt. Like obviously Matt's a comedy guy too, but
as a kid, I didn't realize I wanted to make comedy.
Right. You just loved like filmmaking. And
unfortunately, sometimes people think of a film student as like
drama.
Like a little snobby turtleneck wearing.
Art house. Yeah.
Like for me, like I had more fun hanging out with like the funny people than the super studious people. I feel like that's another way into the arts. And you're like, whoa, you can have a job like doing funny things. You know, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, 100%. And like when I decided to make that change in college, like, and I dove head first, I started taking, you know, production classes, and like we didn't have a proper film school necessarily, but like it was there were still like some really good courses and stuff. But like I always wanted to do comedy, but at the time, like when I was in college, like I was trying to make weird, artsy, like dramatic, like self-important shit, you know, and it's like, it was awful. Like I would melt if anyone saw any of that. But it was like very much a thing of like when I did move out to LA, or like when I was like getting ready and thinking about moving out to LA, I was like, oh, I don't know why I was ever like focusing on like trying to be like just something I'm not. Like comedy is that nice entry point. Like so many people in comedy didn't go to film school. They were actually theater kids and started doing improv or whatever. And it is a nice doorway into the entertainment world because you just kind of have to have a good sense of humor, I guess. I don't know. And you can like get in through just being like a writer or just a performer or whatever. And that's what I found when I moved out to LA, because I had an internship at Funny or Die. That's all I had when I moved out here. And then I just like started taking improv classes.
And how'd you get that internship?
There was a club at the school ran by students called Business Careers and Entertainment Club. Like in Indiana, I didn't know it. Even when I was there, I was like,
coolest club on campus.
Dude, it was the funniest name for a club. It still is to me. My senior year, I was like, oh boy, what am I going to do? Like business major friends of mine are like signing job offers and shit. I'm like, what am I going to do? And a friend of mine in one of my classes was the president of that club, Business Careers and Entertainment Club. And I was like, hey, like, what are you doing? And she was like, hey, we have a networking trip coming up in January where we go out to LA for a week and we meet with a bunch of alumni working in Hollywood. I was like, what? I was like, get me on that. How can I get involved with that? She's like, you got to join the club. I was like, okay, done. And I went on that trip, and we met with so many people, big time people that I didn't even know were IU alumni at that time, like at New Line Cinema, at WM, at all the agencies, all that. And Funny or Die had a couple of alumni running the company at that time. Mike Farah, who's over there, is an alum and all that. I met with them, and that was the only company I was like, that's where I want to get in. So I luckily was able to get an interview just because I did that trip, and then I luckily got the internship. I didn't know anything. Like I just had that internship, and I was like, all I knew is I will do anything to learn everything, because I was like, I have no idea how any of this operates. Like, sure, I have basic production experience, but I don't know anything, you know? And so I just dove in.
Sometimes I'm jealous of people who move from out of town and then like kind of land in Los Angeles, and the only thing they have going is the thing they're trying to focus on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, did you move with friends or anything like that?
So what I did is it was me and like 5 other people that I went to college with, but I was the only one that had graduated. That like I had just graduated. Everyone else had another year. All these other people that were coming out with internships. We all stayed in a rental, like a 3-month rental. You know, I was like sharing a room with someone. It was like we were packed in like sardines, and they were the only people I knew. And then after 3 months, they were gone.
So all you could do really was hang out at Funny or Die. Yeah. Like whether you were scheduled or not, it was like you literally didn't have anything better to do.
Well, they were like, I had a 3-day internship, and I was like, listen, any PA opportunities outside of the days I'm here, like, know that I'm available, is what I said. Like, I was just like, I'm free. And I just got on as many sets as possible and just did whatever I could to get my hands dirty. So yeah, and I did that, and and then I signed up at UCB. I was just like, I'm gonna just do nothing but this.
Did you at that point? Did you have like a certain path or
goal of like what I wanted to do?
Yeah, directing, writing, producing, acting.
Yeah, so screenwriting was like me moving out was like, I'm gonna like focus on screenwriting, because like that was initially when I like made the choice to like switch majors and all that. It was like, yeah, I'm gonna like learn production and all that, but I like want to like dive into writing. That was what I moved out here to do, was to like focus on that. And that's also a big reason why I started doing improv at UCB, is because I like always like liked kind of, you know, performing, but like to me, everyone was like, oh, if you want to improve your writing, like take improv classes. That's just what I kept hearing. So I was like, okay, great. That's all I'll do. So yeah, that was the goal. But like very quickly, like did producing kind of pop up as like a skill set, or just like an option for me. Cause I was like, oh, I don't hate this. And it's like the one thing in this entire industry that like actually gives you some semblance of control, you know, whereas everything else, you're just like,
and you're in demand, right? Like good producers get hired, you know,
100%. Like you're in demand. Like it's invaluable. And like I definitely struggled with it at first, because like I was like, oh, but I should be focusing on my writing, you know what I mean? But like it was good. I mean, like, you know, it just working on set, working at Funny or Die, I was like, I would kind of played this like makeshift production coordinator role. It like got my hands really dirty in that way, and it was great. So yeah, I mean, it was just that, and that's where I like met a lot of my like some of my best friends. We just started making stuff together, and it was great. And it was great because it was like the Wild West at Funny or Die back then, and in the sense that like just anything and everything could get shot and made. Like it was like if equipment wasn't being used, they would like, because we worked there, they'd be like, if we asked them, hey, can we borrow this camera or whatever, they'd be like, yeah, sure, fine. And it just gave us access in that way, which was great.
So what was your first paid gig after the internship?
That internship turned into that full-time front desk job at Funny or Die. So I literally was there for a year and a half at the front desk of Funny or Die, managing interns, managing office stuff, like just and kind of playing that makeshift production coordinator role for like all the in-office shoots and stuff. So I was doing that for like a year and a half. And then I got the opportunity to jump ship and work for a director, for this guy, Jake Szymanski. Do you guys know him?
I don't know him personally, but I'm like a huge fan of his work.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Yeah. Jake's great. Jake's awesome. And the opening for his assistant role came up, and I didn't even have to interview. It was like, because I was like kind of part of the family in a sense. I was like, I want that. I like raised my hand, and I like had a conversation with Jake. It wasn't even an interview. Had a conversation with Jake, and he's like, great, let's do this. And I was like, cool, let's do it. You know? And it was awesome, man. Like the first thing we worked on together was 7 Days in Hell. And I ended up getting like an associate producer credit on that. Like for me, that was like a dream. I was like, I can't believe I get to like work on stuff at this level. And that just like threw me further into it, you know? You know, everyone's like, oh, it's a who you know game and this and that. But like, it truly, like, I think the emphasis of like being able to like build your network, or just like build relationships with people, and like the more you work on stuff and the more people you get to meet and like regularly work with, and like even, you know, just all the crew people, you know, like the regulars that you get to work with, like that stuff is invaluable. And it really came into play when I like was making my own stuff, when I like finally like started working on my own indies. Whenever I talk to anybody who's sort of like interested in like trying to get further in, you know, who's like, I'm thinking of like making the move out here or whatever, my biggest piece of advice is like, good, and just do whatever you can to just work at the bottom of the ladder and do it as much as you can and just soak it all in. It's so easy to move out and be like, well, I want this, I want the top of the you know. And some of my favorite experiences were just like working in that support staff role.
It's also like you have a certain amount of responsibility, certainly, but also like the ability to observe and to soak it all up, like you said, without a ton of accountability,
right,
you know, gives you presence of mind, right? Like if the whole production is on your shoulders, then you don't have a chance to like kind of like take in what the producer is doing and what the director is doing, what the DP is doing, and like you don't get to hear any of the like gossip from the other departments, or like understand how people feel about each other, you know, all that stuff, which is pretty invaluable and like the higher up you get, the harder it is to be able to kind of be a fly on the wall.
You get shielded from everything. And that's like, obviously, when you are at that level and you have the pressure to focus on that singular thing that you have to do, like,
You're really curious about the Jake Zemansky thing for a second. Like, was he a freelancer or was he full-time somewhere when you were his assistant? Like, who was paying you? What's that? Can I get an assistant? What's the deal with that?
I think that was like a relatively unique situation. The first year of working with him, I actually was his full-time assistant and then also the front desk / office manager of Gifted Youth, which was at the time the commercial production arm of Funny or Die. And Jake was on the roster of Gifted Youth. Okay. So I was playing this dual role and I was technically still a Funny or Die, like, Gifted Youth employee. And that was like my first year. I was like just getting paid there. But then I was also like working for Jake full time in that sense. And I would still get to like go and be on set with him and stuff like that.
That's the real move.
Wait, and were you working on treatments and like helping out and like getting jobs and like understanding how directors sell themselves and how projects get off the ground?
It was incredible. I was sitting on calls, listening to him pitch on jobs and getting to really see the advertising, the commercial production world was incredible because that is, I mean, I know you guys both work in that world and it's like, it's very invaluable because that's where a lot of the work is. And so, yeah, no, I was sitting on calls. I was helping him out with treatments, all of that. And it was awesome. And I got to work on like other productions too, outside of him, just through Gifted Youth, with their executive producers at the time. It was great. Like, that year was awesome. It was amazing. And, working on 7 Days in Hell during that time and all that. But then during that time too, Jake was working on finding his first feature. Mm-hmm. And he ended up landing Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates. And then it was like development and casting was going on during that year and all that. And then it just became real. It was greenlit. It was going to happen. And I went with him on that. And that's when I went fully with Jake for from that period and worked on that movie and was getting paid through the production at that point. And that was like one of the best things to work on, to like work on a studio level movie and see how that actually operates was like a dream come true. Like, I was at the time like 25 or whatever, and it was just like, oh my God, this is like what I wanted to be doing. I wanted to be working on a movie set, like
get to be like, oh, do I really want this? Yes or no, right? Like, you get to see the kind of the good and the bad, right? Like,
100%. I think it's so valuable to know what you don't like just as much as what you do, like it really helps you figure out, especially like whether it's as a creative or just someone who's trying to figure out their career or whatever, like you're like, where are my values? What's my voice? And so it was invaluable for that because I experienced, I mean, it was surreal. It was so much fun to be.
I mean, I'm assuming as the director's assistant, you're like hearing him talking to Anna Kendrick and Zac Efron and, and telling them like how to do scenes and blocking things and all of figuring out schedules and everything that takes to make a movie.
It was amazing. I mean, you guys know the director is the center of the universe on any set, right? Well, especially film and commercial. I was right there, the center of the universe. I was just in every meeting. I was very much the liaison. I mean, and that was the reason that was so invaluable, is that really bolstered my producing skills because you really act as a producer in a lot of ways, where it's like I'm talking to the line producer, first AD, every single department head, and I am the intermediate between the director and the entire production. Pretty much everything was just going straight through me. You know what I mean? And so in that sense, it was amazing. Because I just learned, I learned at the highest level of what the standards are, and no production is the same. And I think, I think we all know this, that like when in filmmaking and in producing, especially, like everyone's really kind of just trying to figure it out day by day, because like there's always issues that arise that people haven't dealt with before or whatever, Also like learn from other people's mistakes.
Sure.
not Jake's
Tell
necessarily,
us about
but like
Jake's mistakes.
Yeah. No, I don't mean Jake's. I mean like, but just like, just sort of seeing like the issues that people were like having to resolve. And it wasn't even necessarily mistakes that they made or whatever. It's just like
the things that come up.
I want to jump into your feature soon because we're, been talking for a little bit. But before we do that, real quick, can you be specific at all about anything you learned from like your experience on Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates? Or
give us a
give us something
like an aha moment of like, oh, this is how movies are made.
Like we all know that movies have issues, but what's like what are some of the takeaways you got? Like whether it's like how Jake worked with actors or how you rearranged schedules or rewrote the script or what was interesting? Found the comedy.
Yeah. I think, what's interesting is that production was ran very smoothly. And it was great for a lot of reasons. I will say post-production was one of the most informative for me because especially learning that the post-production process really is the third revision of a film. It is the third time a film is being written. And I hadn't really experienced that before. I hadn't seen that before. I had been on a lot of sets before. But sitting for the 9 months that movie was being edited and really seeing the issues that arise when editing was very eye-opening. It was amazing to see okay, the film is getting chiseled down. It's getting molded into what, not only what what the studio wants and, production company and all that, but then also Jake just trying to do what he's trying to do. And it was very eye-opening to see the process of knowing that great, you edit it in a way that you want it towards what you want it to be. And there are going to be gaps and holes that you have to fill in later. So then there was that rewriting process and there were approvals for pickup shoots and to actually go back and get the cast together and we went onto the Paramount lot and we went and shot a couple days of pickups for a handful of scenes. That was very interesting to me because I think there is that expectation of you go on set, you film everything that you film and then you go edit it with what you have. And it's no, you don't always have to do that. You got creatively the best thing to do is just really make it what it needs to be. And wherever those gaps are, you figure out a way to fill those gaps and to really hit the mark that you're trying to hit. And I just watching that process of it being molded and rewritten and and having to defend those creative choices too, which I think Jake did a great job of, was very eye-opening to me in the sense that I don't know, I guess that you can do that. You know what I mean? That it's okay to do. And I did that on both of my independent features where it was it was inevitable that we had to do that. But it didn't scare me. It was oh no, this is part of the process.
This is the way that people make movies. Yeah.
This is the way people make movies. I just don't think that's a very I don't think
everybody knows that.
Not everyone knows that. And I didn't really know that or understand that until I worked on Mike and Dave.
And additionally, it's hard to experience that because shorts, commercials, sketch, all of that stuff, it's not necessarily imperative that you do that. It's kind of more that you kind of messed up if you need to do a day of pickups on a sketch because you probably only shot for a day,
right. It's just not common practice on short form stuff. And that's all I had really worked on at that point. So
yeah. Do you remember we talked about this on the podcast years ago, but there was a company, I think they went under, but it was a production company whose entire model was we're going to book the actors for 30 days. And then we're going to book a 3-month break. And then we're going to book them for another 10 days. And we're going to build our whole budget around this shoot and reshoot.
What was that? There was a company that
their model was, they're look, to make a good movie, you need to have reshoots as part of your budget. And it's not just get a few exterior shots. It's edit the movie.
You might need scenes, full-fledged scenes. Right. For sure. And it's very true. I'm sure not many movies don't do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you see all the best indie films, the like $7,000 movie or like Desperado or like Crazy or whatever these, Another Earth, these films that like did really well on insanely tiny budgets.
Yeah.
And you realize that the directors own the cameras.
Right.
They shot half the movie. They edited it. They reshot half the movie, added another, like that they had 200 shooting days. And that's why their movie is so good.
Just spread out over time. And it's like, great. You get to figure it out as you're going. Yeah. 100%.
And because they acted in them themselves, like Primer, you know, all the best indie films like were shot. They weren't shot. There's no amazing indie film that was shot in 9 days, you know?
Right. Yeah. No, that's very true.
If you go in knowing that, it's like so helpful to be like, look, we think this is the best version of the script. We think this is the best version of the production, but let's leave ourselves room to.
It alleviates the pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that is like part of the creative process too, that I think like if you leave yourself open creatively, it's like, of course, be intentional and be like, yes, this is what it needs to be. But like, you're going to find at some point something is not what it needs. Like it's not actually right, you know?
Yeah. Mistakes happen or, you know, things evolve is what you're saying, but that's not an excuse for being
totally
flippant. But I think this is a perfect segue. Oren, you were saying like, how nice is it to star in your own films, right?
Right. So that you're in control of the schedule and the production days.
You don't have to call your own agent if you're in the movie, right?
Right.
So you've got 2 films coming out. You've got Keeping Company and also I can't.
Do you want me to say it?
Yes, West Schlagenhauf.
You did it. You got it.
Oh.
West Schlagenhauf. West Schlagenhauf is dying.
And they both star the same guy.
Me. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
I actually had to. I wasn't sure if that was the right answer for a second.
Who's in both of my movies?
Mark Duplass.
Yeah.
So can we just jump straight into West Schlagenhauf?
West Schlagenhauf, yeah.
It's Keeping Company, which comes out tomorrow. So if you're listening to this episode, it's already available. But it's a little bit more conventional. Is that fair to say?
The way it was made definitely is more conventional. For sure.
Yeah. That's not a put down to the film, but like that's a standard indie movie that you happen to be in. Also, Ahmed Barucha is in that movie.
He's incredible in that movie.
His sister is a dear friend of the show, Maureen.
Yeah, he's been on multiple times.
But so let's talk about Wes
Schlagenhauf.
I love
Schlagenhauf is dead. Let's talk about that a little bit because I think this is a less conventional production approach a little bit. Walk us through it.
Yeah. No, West Schlagenhauf is dying. It was really, truly one of a kind in terms of the production. My dear friend Parker Seaman and I, Parker directed the film, we wrote it together. We both act in it. And this was the summer of 2020, the peak of the pandemic. And we were like trying to figure out like, what should we do during this time? You know, I think a lot of people were trying to figure out what should we do during this time. And obviously being responsible, staying home was definitely top of mind. But we were like, well, what should we be writing? And long story short, we come up with this idea, which is to play into our real life and really make something that is a heightened version of who we are as people and our friendship with our friend Wes Schlagenhauf.
Like you came up with the idea that everyone tells you is the worst idea for a movie, right?
Right.
Like, don't make a movie about filmmakers in LA.
Yes.
Don't make a movie about making movies.
Yep.
And you did both of those.
And we did both of those. But the thing is, we did both of those intentionally to, basically for us, it was like a way to we wanted to flip every trope on its head. And we wanted to comment on, it becomes a very meta film because we start commenting on the film you're watching by commenting on the film we're making, which is not the first time that's been done in a movie, but we are doing it in a way to really just satirize and make fun of that thought process, like the guys that are actually going out to do that. It was us making fun of that, but then in reality, we are doing that. So it was like this very weird meta thing to write and to actually film, because it's like, well, we're trying to make fun of it, but we are actually doing it and all that. But yeah, so we just we wrote the script. For
clarity, you have a friend named Wes Schlagenhauf.
So Wes Schlagenhauf, Parker Seaman, and myself are 3 best friends who met out here in LA. We met at Funny or Die. Wes was working at Gary Sanchez. I was working at Funny or Die.
And that's his real name, Schlagenhauf.
That's his real name. It couldn't get more German than that. Blonde hair, blue eyes,
clogs.
Yeah, not far off from clogs.
Lederhosen.
Yeah. So the three of us have known each other for 10 years now. We met each other in 2012, all working as interns and assistants and stuff like that. And we started making sketches together and all of that. And then in 2018, Wes had hit his breaking point. That was the 10-year mark for him in LA. He had kind of hit his breaking point and just was like, needed to hit the reset button, and told us, he's like, I'm kind of just going to take a break from pursuing the film stuff, and I'm going to move back home to Boise. And Parker and I were like, what? Like, that was like our first friend to be like, I'm quitting, essentially. It was sort of a shock to the system for us, because we were like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like, whatever you need to do. It was one of those things that for the past couple of years, we would just always joke, and we'd kind of make fun of him for quitting on his dreams. And like, that's just our dynamic, where we, it's bit therapy, where we're always just like kind of making the joke about the thing that is actually a sensitive subject, and so we would, it was something that we were just like, you're going to move back out here, man. You got to move back out here. And he just hasn't yet. And so when Parker and I were like trying to figure out what we do, we were like, should we make a movie about us going to like visit Wes and like maybe trying to get the band back together and blah, blah, blah. And it just snowballed into this thing where we had made a short film a couple months earlier that was a prank. It was called Trust the Bum. And it was this prank film. It was this prank video, essentially, of us pranking our friend Michael Vlamis, who's like a CW actor. And it's us like pretending we're a Sunbum marketing team, going to give him a promotional opportunity.
You catfish your friend.
But we catfish our friend. Thank you.
Girl, it's like...
Exactly. It's a brand opportunity.
On Instagram. Sponsorship. Yeah.
And so
and it was real? Like you really did it?
So here's the thing is, we started doing the prank, and then as the prank got further in, Parker and I were like, wait a minute. We can't just like break the news to him. This is actually getting to a point where like, it is kind of mean of us to do, because we were like promising him like $10,000, and like, so that
money is already spent in his mind. And you're
I think he like bought stuff on Amazon thinking he said he told me he bought a Roomba. He bought like a $1,200 Roomba. It's okay. He's on CW show. He's doing all right. Sorry, to streamline this, we made that video, and we were doing that prank. And as we were doing that prank, we were like, oh my God, we have to break the news to him in a funny way. So we decided to like work backwards, and we made a video that then digresses into this weirdly emotional meta piece where Parker and I are questioning why we're even doing this in the first place. And it's like very much that we're stuck at home and we're losing our minds and we just miss the old times and blah, blah. We miss being with each other as friends, and we can't, all that. And that it turned into this very layered thing that we were like, oh, we should capture that and put it into a feature film.
Also, though, having seen that short film, it kind of presents a sort of production style that I think is really interesting, in so much that it's like, and it's been a minute, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like a combination of like sort of mixed media. It's like screen captures, like you're seeing phone screens, you're seeing it's docu style a little bit, but it's very, very loose, but also mixed in with kind of like, like if you combine doc style with like those screen films, like Unfriended or something like that. There's a little bit of a blending, but with like kind of a playful tone to it.
Well, and we also throw in like VHS home video that we had recorded of us as friends hanging out over the years, because that's when we get into that weird dark period, like dark part of the film where it's like, why are we doing this? We're best friends who miss each other, like blah, blah, blah. And so it's a mixed media piece. It's very fast paced. It almost feels like a collage that's just like a roller coaster of a narrative. And that also is like very much part of Parker's directing style. He has other shorts that he did that also play with those techniques, but then it also production wise is something that we just did for years, very run and gun guerrilla production with our sketch comedy stuff. So like, it was just something that's just like kind of second nature to us. Like it's just how we know how to operate.
So it wasn't an aha moment that I was mining for. I was hoping that like it was like, oh, this found some success and is a kind of a heightened style, but that like lends itself to a low budget without it ever feeling.
It's the first time that I think it was an aha moment in that it's the first time that it was like actually a narrative and not as much as like it was taking what we've done in the past, but doing it for the first time in a much more just structured narrative sense, I think. And for us, that was that aha moment of like, how do we do that in a long form way? How do we stretch this in a long form way where, because it did do really well. And it was one of those things where like, I think what we loved about it was that I think it just hit people unexpectedly with like, wait, how did that suddenly get emotional all of a sudden? And like, I'm like invested in you guys as friends and as people.
Right.
When this is a prank video.
Like screen captures of Instagram into like some dudes fucking around and like messing with their friend into something meaningful.
More heartfelt and meaningful. And that was the aha moment. Like that was like the first time we had done that. And we were like, we got to capture that. We got to take what we captured and put it into a longer form. And so when we were riffing around on like what we're trying to write for a feature and should we make a movie about us going to see Wes and all that, and when we were like, if we're going to try and capture that and like try and take people on this ride where eventually they're going to get hit in the gut with like emotion, like let's center it around us as friends and like we pulled from so much of our real life and our real life dynamic that you just can't recreate. You can't write that stuff really. You can't like, it is kind of lightning in a bottle for the fact that like, it's just unique to us, And so we were like, let's focus on that. Let's hone it in that way. And just try and write the best story we can while also playing with this mixed media aspect and a narrative that is very layered and meta, but used in that way for humor and comedy and all that.
Can we unpack that just a tiny bit more on a practical level? I'm curious about how you approach something like that. How do you, what does that look like on the page? And then also how do you shoot it?
Yeah, finance it.
So with writing it, I mean, it was Parker and I just sitting down together every day that we could write. And
are you writing like final draft screenplay, like dialogue? Or are you kind of writing like kind of beat sheets or scriptments or?
No, it was a very tight script. And actually a lot of the film is we stuck to the script as much as possible for production purposes, but also because we really wanted to, we felt very confident in what we had on page. We tried to improvise as much as we could and whatnot. And in the certain moments that it was okay to do that, but no, we were right. I mean, it was a very standard screenplay, strict script. Even all the very multimedia moments and montages, like we were really writing it out as you would a moment of action. Like it was just like really making clear for the reader like what this is, and that was we didn't need other people to read it and understand it, but it was also for us to like. It just felt like I mean, we did. Actually, I take that back. We did need other people to read it and understand it because...
I was going to say, you have cast, right? Like...
Yeah,
like,
no.
People have to get it, right?
Like, not only does the cast need to get it, but like when we're like bringing in crew that are friends or like, people that we're pulling favors from, we want them to read it and get it. And like be like, oh, I know what you're doing here. Especially it's like, hey, because we would send out our short film, Trust the Bum, and be like, this is the tonal reference and style reference, and then you read the script and you're like, oh, I know what you're doing. Like I was reading the script, we wrote it very specifically so that anyone could read and understand and follow along of what we're doing here in the mixed media moments and stuff like that. So like all the voiceover that plays over a lot of our mixed media and stuff, it's like it's all there. It's written beat by beat underneath the visuals and stuff. So yeah, we sat down and just cranked it out on page, and we're both just on our computers, and that's just us just having discussions scene by scene as we're beating it out and then eventually writing it. We really made sure we were fully on the same page creatively because it is so much to balance, and we wanted to go into production just being like, we already know what the vision is here and let's not waste time trying to figure it out in the moment. We wanted to avoid that mumblecore production style because we just knew that we couldn't afford to do that, especially to accomplish what we were trying to accomplish.
Right. And you two are the actors, main actors too.
Yeah, like the movie is 90% us on screen. So people are gonna like the moments that other people are on screen, I think are gonna be the favorite are gonna be the audience's favorite moments because they're gonna be like, finally, fuck.
I'm going to push us through here a little bit because I just want to talk about the cast real quick. Speaking of other people.
Yeah.
You have Darcy Carden, you have Mark Duplass. Part of the premise of the movie is that these two guys are trying to get Mark Duplass to record a video message for their dying friend.
Right.
Wes Schlagenhauf.
Right.
So do you picture like Mark Duplass as like the god of like indie film? You write him in and then you send him the script. How do you get Mark Duplass on board?
Yeah, there's a few different levels to this. So when we were trying to figure out what we were going to do, like when we're trying to figure out what's the story we want to tell and whatnot, part of what inspired us was that Parker had received a Cameo. And for those who don't know, Cameo is a website where you can go on and pay whoever's on there, any celebrity, actor, athlete.
If you're a fan of reality television.
Oh, yeah.
A couple seasons ago, you could be,
right, a couple seasons ago.
You went like Snooki singing you happy birthday.
No, so that's like way too like I don't know.
But like people like
Short.
Like the Soup Nazi, the guy that played the Soup Nazi on Seinfeld. He's on there, and you can get him to like record a message for a friend or whatever for if you pay $100 or whatever his rate is. And so, anyways, Parker had received a Cameo from I think it was his girlfriend who got him a Cameo for his birthday that summer from Mark Duplass. And it was like a really long video of Mark just sort of being like, hey man, happy birthday. I heard you're a filmmaker. And like him giving advice of like what to do as an indie filmmaker.
You should read my book.
He said that. He straight up.
I'm trying to remember that there is I can't remember if it was on the show or if it was just a personal friend who said like, when casting, go on to Cameo because it will tell you who is kind of famous and willing to do stuff for money. And I think that Mark is probably doing something totally different. Like it's like
his was for charity, but
that is a different deal. But yeah,
that's a joke we make in the movie where like I'm like Mark Duplass is on Cameo, and Parker's like Mark's on Cameo, and I'm like I mean I don't know why, but yes he is on Cameo. Like it is a joke of. But he was doing it for charity, and it was that thing where it was like it is funny, it's hysterical that. He's on there anyway. So, we had that cameo. And when we were riffing around on the idea of like what this movie could be, we were like, oh my God, how funny it would be if like our characters, because we find out Wes is sick, we want to get him a cameo to make him feel better. And who better than his favorite filmmaker, Mark Duplass. But instead of us even sharing that cameo with Wes, it's like it inspires us in turn to make a movie that's going to then give us the break we need in Hollywood, so it turned into a plot point, and we were like, let's run with that. And we used the cameo that Parker received, like that, we used that cameo in the movie, but we had written ourselves into a corner where we're like, well, we got to get Mark later on. And we have to have it pay off in a way. Like,
it's like showing the gun without shooting it.
Right. And so we did, we wrote ourselves into a corner where there is a moment where Mark Duplass appears, and we got lucky, man. Like we put together materials and we sent it over. And not even
agent?
No. We one of our producers knows someone at Duplass, the two Duplass brothers company, Will Dowsett, who works over there at the Duplass brothers company, and just sent it being like, hey, we're producing this movie. We're making this movie. If Mark would be interested in this. And what made it an easy ask was that we didn't need Mark in person. We just needed him to record something on screen that we could then play on a TV screen later. And a couple weeks went by and, nothing. A couple more weeks went by and like us following up. And then Will was like, he loves this. He thinks it's really funny.
And do you send it like an offer or anything monetary?
There was no, I mean, it was such a weird situation.
Scale type of deal.
Such a weird situation. We hadn't really had any of that discussion. We were just trying to find out if he would do it. That's all. It was like very casual because we didn't have anything to really offer other than like SAG ultra low budget scale. And so we're like, let's not even
credit and a copy of the film
and credit, right? But it's like one of those things. But it's like, is $211 going to mean anything? You know, we were just like, let's just see if he'd at least engage with us and like humor us to at least talk to us about it or whatever. And to Mark Duplass's credit, man, like that guy really does support indie filmmakers. He's so busy. We didn't even really get to talk to him. 6 weeks went by, and all of a sudden one day we receive a Google Drive link with his take. And we were like, no way. And we still hadn't talked about we hadn't gotten into a conversation.
It's easier to just shoot the take in his office or whatever.
And that's what he did. And he sent it over.
Screen record, send it over. Great, we're done. Don't worry about it.
It was amazing. I mean, we're forever grateful to him. I mean, we haven't even really gotten to like talk to him about it still. It's crazy. It's fucking crazy. I mean, since then we have like buttoned up with paperwork and stuff like that, but it was all like very painless. It's incredible. It was one of those things where it's like very rare and weird. It's like, that's not how things work. But
sure.
But the man really did a solid for us.
I mean, certainly also like as a person who is constantly espousing these sorts of just shoot it mentality, right?
Course,
like you're kind of
you would hope
asking him to put his money where his mouth is. But let's talk about I think like Darcy Carden or Aparna Nancharla. There were other kind of maybe people who have less of a reputation per se of like supporting independent film, right?
Yeah. Well, so with Darcy Carden, Darcy is the best. She's wonderful. We have known Darcy since our Funny or Die days.
Funny or Die.
And
sure.
Darcy worked with us. She was nice enough to like do sketches of ours back then. And we also know Jason Carden, her husband, who was a producer at Funny or Die at the time. And so like I
just met that guy.
He's great.
At a party.
He's the best.
Doesn't he work for Seth Meyers' company?
He does, yeah. He is the best. He's a damn good producer. So the Cardens are the best. They're amazing. We've known them for years now. But Darcy, in the time that we've we're making sketches with her,
she was a friend of yours at the theater and now is famous.
Is national treasure almost. Like, people love her. People see her and they're like, that's Janet. Like, she's a full-blown celebrity and she's killing it. And I'm so happy for her. It's like amazing. But it's one of those things where... And
for listeners that don't know, she's Janet in The Good Place and she's on Barry and she's in a lot of other
things.
Awesome shows.
And League of Their Own coming out on Amazon. I'll plug that for her. So we were like, we just had this, it was like an easy ask, small role, and it was to shoot remotely. And she's so busy, but we were like, who better? And for us, it was like this full circle moment for Wes Parker and I to have Darcy in a movie that were like our first movie together, that like she was a supporter of ours when we were all just hustling, trying to do whatever. And now she's this big celebrity. And we were like, well, let's just hit her up. Let's just ask her if she'll do it. And she did it. And there was like no questions asked. She was like, guys, I'll do anything for you. So, we filmed a day with her on Zoom, and she saw the movie and she loved it. And she she wanted to put her name on it. So she's now an executive producer of the movie too, which is great. But so that's how that worked out. That was just like,
and this was all, I mean, I guess it was a lot of this during COVID.
This was all during COVID. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So because there was probably a time, it's not very helpful for people making movies now, but there was probably a time that was easier to get people to do things because they were all at home. Yeah.
Well, and but you know what? Her and Mark, man, like they were working. They were like, they were on stuff that was like, had the budget to like, make it through COVID.
Isolate.
Yeah. So, but still, I'm sure that there were like, we probably did benefit from some gaps in time that she did have, or like, was it just home and not traveling abroad or wherever? But so that definitely helped. And then with Aparna, that was more traditional. That was reaching out to her agents. We were like, we'd love her, like her dry delivery for this character. Like, she's gonna be perfect for this role. And that was something we did film with her in person. That was That was a full shoot day that we did with her. And that was a pickup shoot of ours. And that actually where Aparna comes into play, part of that like was kind of a bit of a rewrite after we had started shooting. It was sort of like, oh, we got to fill this gap here. So that's like one of those moments where then months later we actually ended up filming it.
And let me ask you, just because I think this might be useful for listeners, when you went out to get her, she's, you know, a person, I don't know if everyone knows her name, but probably everyone would recognize her as someone they've seen. And yeah, definitely in the comedy world. And you didn't know her personally. Do you send her the cut of the movie and say, hey, this is the missing scene and we want to put you in here?
You know what? Did we send her a cut of the movie? I don't remember if we did. I know that we definitely sent her the pages. We might have sent her the full script, but if she read it or not, I don't know. We probably did send a cut of the movie because by the time we shot, we did. By the time we shot with her, we had already been like a year into the process. So yes.
So why not? Yeah.
So why not?
Because when you're doing kind of a lower budget thing, which I'm assuming it was kind of lower budget just because you guys were
scrappy.
Then you get to do, like, it's hard to make offers because the actors don't know if you're ever going to even finish the movie,
Totally, yeah.
And so if you can say, hey, the movie's finished, we just have the one spot open for you, then I think you have and especially if they can see it and they're like, oh, this is pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is like, it was we had it, we just had like black slugs and like certain moments or whatever, but it's like you could watch our work in progress cut and get a feel for what we were doing. And so, yeah, that definitely was very helpful. And that is very helpful in general with like in the indie film world where it's like, if you have anything to show for, it just makes it that much more real for sure.
Yeah. We have a listener of the podcast, Colin Levy, made a short film and Jude Law is in it. And he basically made the entire thing and just kept this slot open for Jude Law. And he's like, hey, all you got to do is show up one day, say this line, and we'll put it in here.
We need to meet you.
Incredible.
And he's like, okay, come to London. I'll do it.
That is come to London. That's amazing. I mean, that is the cool thing, like in having gone through the process of like making indie feature films is like nothing is that out of the question as long as you are approaching it in a realistic way or like you're creatively molding things in a very like low like it's like a very small ask with like low risk for other people. They'll do it.
A clear ask, I think, is maybe the other thing. It's like to the point of like, oh, sending along a working cut or whatever. It's like, no, I need you to be in the parts where there isn't a movie, where there's where you just see the black parts. That's where the script goes.
That's where
in your hand.
You'll be there.
We need you to be there on Friday. This is what the movie looks like. This is what it feels like. This is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Are you in? Are you out? And that's just such an easier situation than like, hold on, let me crack this open. Like, hold on, I'll Google these guys. Have they done anything that's worth looking at?
Yeah.
Clean, clear asks, I think, is kind of the secret.
But I think what Devin is saying is really important too, that it's like low risk in that, the more famous you are, the higher chance being in a crappy movie will like hurt your career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to see
is a first time director,
like, OMG, Brad Pitt in this garbage pile. Who's blackmailing him? What do they have on Brad Pitt to make him get in this movie?
Yeah. So if you have something to prove to them that you have a vision, that you're doing something unique, that's interesting, it's funny, it's hitting the mark.
Cool.
Yeah.
For
sure.
The difference between like, oh man, I was in this indie movie, it was a shit show, and like, oh yeah, I'm in a thing in Tribeca next week.
Right. Yeah.
It's
one of those things where it's like, and if we didn't get into Tribeca and we just ended up, doing an awesome festival run that's just not nearly as prestigious or whatever, it's like no one would also know. Like that's what makes it low risk, where it's like no one's gonna hear about it, so don't worry. Or not, no one's gonna hear about it. I shouldn't say that, but what I mean is like that's very condescending.
It's not going to be news the way they're fearful it could be.
Right. It's either you win or you're just fine. You just you don't lose really. Like, especially if it's a small role.
Well, but you're not really doing it for the money either. So like, what are you doing?
What are you? You have to. There
cool.
has to be something that attracts.
Yeah. The pitch is like, oh, this is going to be really cool. Not like it's not going to be bad.
Right.
If it's bad, who cares?
Yeah.
Final question on West Schlagenhauf.
Yeah.
You know, it's premiering at Tribeca, which is coming up like very soon, right? Yeah. Like next week or something?
Our premiere's on Thursday, this Thursday, June 9th.
Oh.
Yeah.
Dude, you are late for your flight. You got to get out of here.
I'm leaving tomorrow night, so this is nick of time right now.
Your PR people sent us info on the movie. They said there's no trailer yet.
Yeah. That's intentional.
Tell us just a little bit about that. Like, why is that intentional?
So that's intentional. And that's something I learned with keeping company, having done a festival run last year. I learned a lot. I made a lot of mistakes on that festival run. I'm still proud of it, but it was like one of those things where you don't, it's not that helpful to have a trailer or even a poster when you're doing your festival run, because that then clutters up the internet and takes up a lot of opportunities with press releases and stuff like that you kind of will lose out on come actual release time. Because come actual release time, your distributor is going to most likely going to want a new trailer and going to want a new poster that aligns with their sales team and what they think is going to be most presentable, you know.
A trailer that they can have a premiere for with some media outlet.
And then that, like the press of it all is a big thing too, because then come release time, you need to still have the opportunity to go to great outlets where you haven't already haven't already picked it up, or haven't already kind of blown that shot.
Right, exclusive.
You want the exclusive. You want the exclusive clip, the exclusive look at the trailer, exclusive look at the poster, all of that. And so essentially you're gonna have to redo those two things no matter what. And it's just, you're gonna have to redo those two things no matter what. And what's the point of putting them out now, where then it can also, if people see it, that's gonna be the first thing in their mind of that movie. You know, you just like wait until it's time for them to actually go see the movie, because festivals are much more exclusive anyways, you know?
Yeah. I had mixed feeling on it, because I was thinking about it when your team sent all of this stuff over. There's a part of me that wonders if like a homebrewed trailer that's on like a private Vimeo link.
Sure, that's true.
Something like that might be worthwhile.
Yeah.
Or like, here's the scene. Like here's
sure.
That's true. You know what? We have clips that they should have offered up. Because we have a few press clips. One of them is being released on Wednesday as an exclusive, and it's like a clip that we're like not worried about using now, because it's not gonna we would never use it for the release. It's just, but they should have sent that. They should have sent you guys clips actually, because the other thing too is
that's no shade on your team. I think they probably did. It was more just kind of like as a thought experiment of like, because we get pitched all the time, and so
we like trailers for PR purposes, because we just want to
know what you're about to talk about.
Figure it out.
Does it look like someone shot it in their apartment?
Does
it look cool?
Assess like, oh, is this what sort of film is this?
Well, that's very true. I mean, and that's the thing is we did. I wish we had shared that with you guys. Sorry about that, but you're right. But I think
Devin, that's it. We're kicking you off.
We weren't even rolling into this. No, but I think it more as just an experiment for other filmmakers out there.
Yes.
You know, there's the audience at large, where an exclusive is important and all of that, and then there's like a festival audience or press, and those are kind of two different bodies. And I wonder if there's a way to kind of split the difference in a way that maximizes eyeballs in both departments.
That actually brings up a great, you're right. Like, so that brings up a great point, because like of any festival that you get into, we'll say like, send us your trailer so that we can put it into the trailer we make for the festival. And again, we didn't want to cut a trailer. We didn't either want to spend the time or the money, just because it's tough. Sure. But so what we did do is like we pulled clips that we gave to them to use in their trailer, but not to release the clips as individual clips or anything, but to be like, hey, you can put these in your trailer to like showcase our film. so that it has presence.
Right. Almost part of like a press kit. Like,
Exactly.
Highlights.
Yeah. But yeah, I think filmmakers, like, I think that is the middle ground where it's like pull clips that you are, some that maybe you're cool to like utilize for like actual press releases and exclusives during a festival run that might help bring eyes to your film. Pull clips that you're like, don't feel like are like the best clips. You save those for your release time, but like something that is still a good representation of your film, and use that for press time, and also, you know, use those clips for providing to the festival so that they can, you know, utilize that for their own promotional stuff. But like otherwise, it's like, in my opinion, I think there definitely are different strategies that work for every different film. But in my opinion, generally, it's like better not to like release some of those bigger assets too soon.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a way also, and this is just me spitballing, if it's something where you can control it entirely, if you're not distributing it to the, you know, there's all those like YouTube trailer aggregator sites. So don't send it to Joe Blow or whatever that, you know, wherein you can kind of scrub it and pretend that none of it ever happened when your distributor does want to, you know, release it for real, basically. Well,
yeah. And so that's something we dealt with on Keeping Company, because we did have a trailer that we had cut, and we had a poster that we had put together, like all on our own. Because during the festival circuit, we were like, people, you know, festivals were asking us, and we were like, in our minds, we're like, yeah, we should. We didn't have a press team. We didn't have we didn't have sales agents ahead of time, and so we didn't have people saying that we shouldn't do that strategically. But as we were going further and further down the line of like the festival run and talking to distributors and stuff like that, and we were hearing that people don't love when you do that and all that, it was a bummer because it didn't ruin any deals for us or anything like that, but it became this thing where I have had to go on like YouTube and flag things because there are these aggregates that just pull it from like festivals and stuff like that, and it's just like, oh my god, it's everywhere. It's attached to our IMDb, our old trailer, and I cannot get it rid of it.
And it sucks IMDb because is really, really hard to like delete things from. Adding to is easy. Deleting stuff is in certain cases literally impossible.
I've been trying to get my birthday off of there for 80 years.
Yeah, no, IMDb. I mean that's like part of the thing where I'm like, if someone goes to like Keeping Company is releasing, we have a brand new trailer that our distributor made. But if you go to our IMDb page, you're not going to see that trailer. You're going to see our old trailer that is not nearly as good. And it's a bummer. It's like, I can't get rid of it. And so like, for that reason, I'm like, I will never do that again, because you just don't, you want to represent your film as best as you can. And it's kind of an evolving, it's an evolving thing as you go through the process of like, sort of strategy. You kind of have to pivot and go along with like which way the wind is blowing as you're doing the festival run and finding out how you're going to be released and all that. So I don't know. It's nice to have a clean slate.
Can we talk about financing for Schlagenhauf? How did you put the film together?
So that is a great question. So again, we started writing that movie. Our goal with the movie was, we're going to open up a couple credit cards, get a small crew together, get in a van, shoot this movie as we're driving to Idaho to Wes, and then shoot in Idaho with Wes and all of that. That's what we were going to do, because it's a road trip movie.
And do you guys have day jobs during this time?
No, at that time, I do now. Parker is a freelance director. I was freelancing at that time too. So that was our plan. And then one of our producers, Trent Anderson, was like, hey, I have a friend who's interested in, who's actually talked to me recently about investing in, looking for cool indie filmmakers to like invest in. And we were like,
his name is Mark Duplass.
Yeah, his name's right. Yeah. And we were like, oh, really? And do you think he'd be interested? And he's like, I mean, only one way to find out. So we like send him the script and all that. And it was like, we got our first initial funds like pretty much right away. And once we got that, like, that wasn't our mentality. We were like, cause like, we were like, it's COVID times. Like, and also this is such a hard movie to like get people on board with, like creatively, I think, like to understand what we're going to try and do. And like, and he was down, and it wasn't like a huge lump sum of cash. It was like, it was like our first 10K. And but the fact that we were getting $10,000, that's when we looked at each other and we go, okay, let's use this.
Okay, we have to
let's leverage this to get more money. And we did that. And that process was very much.
Are you comfortable throwing out a range or any sort of number in terms of just mostly just for people to understand?
Sure. Yeah. Of where our final budget was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if the rest of the team will care if I say. So what I'll say is low six figures.
Sure.
I mean, you said ultra low budget.
Ultra low budget. We fall well within the ultra low budget scale, which is up to 250,000. We are below that for sure.
Great.
But we are low six figures. So, you know, in a sense, it was a bit of a shoestring budget for the fact that it's not shoestring, but you know,
$101,000.
Yeah, but it's micro budget for sure. And like, but by the way, that number, that low six figures is like up into this moment right now. But like that all came in like piece by piece. So like, we had that first initial like seed funding, and we used it to just get us off the ground. And you know, we worked in a very scrappy way. I mean, it was a core crew of 7 of us. It was our, you know, like DP, Parker and myself, and then 2 other producers, an AC and a sound guy. It was like, that was our crew. You know, there were a couple of shoot days where we had bigger crews. But they were like for very specific scenes, but like that was us. Like that was we created a little cell, and we just like went out and like stole locations and shot stuff at our houses and everything like that. But yeah, like we got that initial money and we just used it to leverage. Like we went out and talked to other people to just be like, do you know anyone interested in this opportunity? You know, like that's what I did with Keeping Company too. Me and my team, we did it a little bit more buttoned up, but like, it was just going and knocking on every single door to be like, do you know anyone that's interested? Are you interested? And that was like friends and family, you know, like, and not asking for a lot of money. It was like, can we get like you know, whatever they're willing to give, you know, sometimes it was like $2,000, which is not nothing. You know, or
but you're not betting the house on $2,000.
Not betting the house. Yeah. So it was just, and you know, and we pulled in, we just kind of pulled it in together in that way. So that's how that worked for West Schlagenhauf. It really was unexpected, but then we just kind of were like, I mean, again, we didn't even go to, like, the whole movie is about us going to Idaho, and we have scenes of us in Idaho. Quote unquote Idaho. We shot everything in California and in the LA area, and we were like in the Salton Sea for like a week.
Crazy.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so tell us about Keeping Company. Was that before or after Schlagenhauf?
Keeping Company was first. That was my first film. That started the process of Keeping Company started in 2018 with my friend Josh Wallace, who was the director of the film, who I wrote it with. And Josh and I had been writing together for a few years at that point, and we were just kind of at our wits' end. We were like, how do we get anything made? You know, we had both like come up as assistants in the studio world. He had worked for a writer director and all that. And we were just like at our wits' end. And we were like, dude, we're filmmakers. Let's just make a movie. Let's figure it out. So we wrote Keeping Company to produce it. And we brought together a team. Well, initially we just brought in one more producer, Sarah Bowers, who was our first producer, and it was her first feature too. So we were all just hungry in that way. And Sarah, we put together our first draft. We did a budget breakdown. Sarah put together an amazing business plan that like broke down like the state of the industry and indie what indie filmmaking looks like right now. This was back in 2018, so it's like crazy how much it's
like
changed.
Blair Witch Project just made 1,000x the investment.
Yeah, like it really was. I mean, that's like Netflix was still buying stuff at that time. Mm-hmm. They're not, and like that is a thing of the past now, you know? So like on that business plan, it was like, we're going to try and get it to Netflix and so, like, and we weren't just saying that shit. Like we were like, we're really going to try and do that. But like, by the time we had actually gotten to the sales phase with Keeping Company, that was like ancient history. And we were like, oh God, a lot has changed. But we put together she put together an amazing business plan that just made us seem legit and made it seem like an actual business opportunity, because that is what it is. Like, while it's a really risky business opportunity, film is a business opportunity. So that was something that we were able to like rewire our brains with, to be like, hey, we're not asking people to do us a favor. We're providing them with an opportunity. You know, like we really like, let's get out of our own way here and at least speak to it as if we deserve this, you know? And, and that was like, literally, that was us knocking on door after door. And again, like the approach really wasn't asking people that we knew directly for money, but being like, who do you know that would be interested in this opportunity? And like, it helped lead us to a lot of people that a lot of no's, but like people that, you know, live, you know, in different states that have great marketing jobs and stuff like that, that were genuinely intrigued, asked great questions about like the business opportunity and all that. And some of those hit, some of those didn't. Yeah, we just, that one, we went into production with like 3/4 of our budget. We did not have our full budget yet, but we had enough to be like, we're gonna, and our whole process, our whole thought process that whole time was like, we're a moving train, moving full steam ahead. We just have to put our blinders on and people will jump on board. Was our hope. And that was our mindset in it. And that it worked. Luckily enough, it worked. So we wrote this, we fundraised for a year. From the time we started writing the script in February 2018, we were on set by February 2019. And we shot that for 18 days. And then we had about 6 pickup days beyond that. But that was a little bit more of a buttoned up production and it's a little more traditional in that sense.
So it's interesting that you went from something that is a little more traditional into this kind of looser, you know, a more streamlined, we'll say, of a crew. That has to be conscious in some way. Was that because you were like, well, we're going to max out credit cards and just go for it?
Yeah, I mean, and also COVID, like it was very much, it's a movie of the time, you know, like, I mean, the movie itself takes place during COVID. Like it's a movie of the time. So like we just leaned into what we had been doing, you know, as young filmmakers.
We better cut this because the Tiger King joke isn't going to get any funnier.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We tried to make sure it was like as evergreen as possible, like the jokes and references. But yeah, like, yeah. It was the decision to do it in a scrappy way was very much because of COVID, because it made it safer in a sense. And it also just, we also had less money and it was like, yeah. And it also, it's just, that's the type of movie it is. Like, it wasn't like with Keeping Company, we had like real sets. I mean, we were like on location, like in like actual like houses and office spaces and stuff like that. But it was like, we had to actually have a production designer there because it like mattered for the movie. Like we had to like really pay attention to those sets. Whereas like with West Schlagenhauf is Dying, it was like, this is a road movie. We're just going to shoot where we're at, you know, like there were a couple of scenes that we were actually on location and like, you know, had a little bit of set design, but it was like, it's a scrappy movie that just like, that's how it was made. That's what it kind of puts on screen too.
Can you give us real quick the log line for Keeping Company?
Yeah. Keeping Company is a social satire that follows a fateful chain of events that begin to unravel after 2 brash insurance salesmen go knocking on the wrong door and find themselves trapped inside of a serial killer's basement. So it's a dark comedy, horror comedy that basically begs the question, can you tell the difference between ruthless corporate salesmen and vicious suburban serial killers? And it's an ensemble piece that just is very Coen-esque. That was a huge inspiration for Josh and I, or the Coen brothers, and playing with something that explores kind of heavy themes with very character-driven comedy, and playing with an ensemble that like just revolves around a chaotic course of events, essentially.
Awesome. Yeah. Where did that premiere?
We premiered virtually at the San Francisco Independent Film Festival.
Oh, cool.
We we went into our festival, and that was great. It was cool to, get it out there and play it. And then from there, we played a ton of great like horror genre festivals all around the world. Brussels International, fantastic film festival, which is like was on their 40th anniversary. Yeah, it was some really cool festivals that we played throughout the year. But we went into that with like no festival strategy, and it was such a learning curve for us that we just hadn't like. And we're so proud of like all the festivals we did play at. But it was such a great learning experience in that way too, because like we hadn't really focused in on like the type of film we could have like really honed in on like some of the big genre festivals and like gunned for and whether or not we would have gotten in is another thing. But yeah, I
mean, Fantastic Fest it doesn't really get much better than that, does it?
Yeah, Fantastic and like Fantasia is a big one. There's like those two are great.
Sure.
So
Overlook is happening, I think, as we speak.
Overlook's happening right now. Overlook's great. Yeah.
Yeah, but you didn't. That wasn't your strategy. You were just like, oh, we should submit.
We should just get it out there. Yeah. We were like, we submitted to so many festivals, and we were like, let's just play it. Because like we had also heard like again, that's just it's a naivete that you learn and you grow from the decisions you make. But someone was like, you just got to get it out there and play at as many festivals as possible, and let the companies come to you. And I don't agree with that strategy whatsoever. We went ahead with that. But like, and again, it was still a really fun festival run, but it was just one of those things where it is its own world. And you do kind of have to like try to at least like have the biggest premiere you can have. It really does make a difference, I think.
Yeah. And then also like, the mentality of like, well, let's play everywhere we can means that it's only worth it if someone from the film is attending those festivals.
So exactly.
Right. Totally. And that's a lot of money. That's a lot of time.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait a minute. We're committed to all of these places. And maybe I don't want to spend my weekend in, Arkansas or wherever.
This question might not be fair, but I'm curious if you had to take a guess of which of your two movies that are, premiering this week and coming out this week is going to make a bigger difference in your career as a writer, producer, actor?
That's a really great question because they're both very different films, like just tonally. And to some degree, I think the fact that I have a film that I can say is premiered at Tribeca is inevitably going to mean more to some degree, like, you know what I mean? Like that this movie premiered at but also at the end of the day, like a lot of movies do premiere at like major film festivals, and it's like it only means so much if the film actually becomes a hit, I think, in some to some degree.
There are a lot of movies that play Sundance every year that no one's heard of.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
there's actually some bad movies I've seen at Sundance.
Yeah, I think like there is this little bit of like a misconception of like people are like, well, if you get into one of those, your life's going to change. It's like, well, that's not true. So I don't have that expectation, but I think in terms of just overall, just general, it's really hard for me to say. I mean, Wes might just open up more doors in that it's a little bit more of an audience pleaser. It's a little bit more of a broader film that I think welcomes more people in, whereas Keeping Company is very specific. It's a little bit more of a niche like cult film that is going to have
more genre.
It's and it's weird. It's offbeat. And Wes is just way more of like, this is a comedy that like, I think a lot more people will be able to vibe with right off the bat. And that I think maybe might open up more doors for me in that sense.
Yeah. I mean, I guess my takeaway and like the disclaimer is I've not seen either of your movies. I have seen the trailer for Keeping Company and I've read a lot about Wes Schlagenhauf is dying. I think on paper, Keeping Company seems like the more commercial movie. It's a horror comedy. It's like intense. It's a thriller. It's got these genre elements. It can premiere at Fantastic. You could see it playing at a South by. You could see it being a cult hit. You can see even on a low budget, it having a place to live. And on paper, Wes Schlagenhauf is like three guys I've never heard of, a really hard title to remember, about going on a road trip, like so kind of
it's true.
puffy chair-esque, like early 2000s era indie film. That seems like the one that like, who would even like realize that movie exists? But and this is kind of like the thing that I've in my personal work have evolved to figure out after like 15 years in this business is that everyone, when they start their film journey, they have their favorite filmmakers, the Coen brothers, Tarantino, Apatow, whatever, and they go out to make a movie that is like that type of movie. And they try to get the production designer to make awesome sets, and they try to get the DP to make it look cinematic and super cool. And they try to get the best actors and cast they can get, or, you know, or they cast themselves.
Yeah.
But there's this thing where you are trying to make your movie fit into a genre, and it has a bigger budget than West Schlagenhauf. And then you make this other movie that's just you and your friends just filming yourselves, just being completely original. Like you haven't compared that movie to any other movie or any other filmmaker. And it was lower budget, so you guys care less about how perfect every, you know, cut and every scene and every set looks. And at the end of the day, that's the movie that premieres at Tribeca. And that's the movie that we have an hour and a half interview and we spend an hour and 10 minutes talking about. And that there's like, I think for our listeners, if you're trying to figure out which feature you should make, the cool sci-fi conceptual film that's like the next Total Recall or whatever, or the movie about how you and your dad both like lost all your money at the racetrack or whatever, like that the one that seems less interesting and less commercial on the, you know, in the beginning might be the one that actually more people will be like, oh, you and your dad like would go to the racetrack. Like, you know, that there's something about the personal story, especially on the lower budget, that really presents like, hey, I'm Devin Nas. This is who I am. This is my personality. I mean, obviously you're acting in it too, so you have an extra plus in both movies. But I'm guessing that watching West Schlagenhauf, I get a better idea of who Devin Nas is than watching Keeping Company.
Yeah. I mean,
and again, you should watch both movies, everyone that's listening. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but I'm saying there's something about telling your own story through film that like really draws people in, regardless of the genre and the budget and the stars.
Yeah. I mean, it's pulling from a real place, and that's what like makes it so unique and makes it of a voice in a sense. Whereas like, you know, Keeping Company can be of a voice of like Josh and I, of how we perceive the world and how we want to write about it or whatever. But like what you're saying is like when you pull, and I'm playing like a full blown character in Keeping Company, whereas in like West Schlagenhauf, I'm playing a fictionalized version of myself. But what's not fictionalized is the dynamic, is the way we speak to each other. Like it's so natural in that sense. And it feels like you're just kind of with us. And that is definitely less traditional and more unique, and I think does stand out more on a broader scale for sure. It's gonna make people, I think, perk up more on a broader scale.
And ask for you specifically. And my guess is that when you and Josh watch Keeping Company, you think like, "Ooh, if we had more money, we would have done this."
100%.
But when you watch West Schlagenhauf, you're like, "Yeah, maybe it would be nice to have more days or more things," but like this is singularly us. And so when I think a lot of people think like, oh, if I can make like the small version of Blade Runner, then people will hire me to make the big version of Blade Runner. Right. But really, if you make the bizarro, who's the Mark Duplass movie where he goes, he builds a time machine.
That Trevorrow film, Safety Not Guaranteed.
Yes.
And then next thing you know, you're making Jurassic Park.
Jurassic World. Yeah. And maybe your dad's like best friends with Steven Spielberg and all the other things. But but it's not your ability to get production value that will get you the meetings for the next movie. It's the fact that you
stand out,
are doing something in a way that people haven't seen before.
Yeah. Can you break the mold in a way that people are just that becomes
that's still engaging.
And also to your point too, I'll just real quickly say like you were saying, like, you know, Keeping Company in a sense is more traditional because it does fit into like a little bit more of a box. You can comp certain films to it. I mean, you can comp a lot of films to it because we drew from a lot of inspiration for that. But like, to your point, like within the industry, for a second, forget about the audience and forget about people outside of who's going to see it or whatever, out in, another state or whatever.
Commercialism.
But like the commercialism, but like who in the industry, what's going to get people in the industry excited, which is what you're kind of touching on here, is like, what's going to get them excited rather than like how well your numbers do with one movie compared to another. It's like, what's going to get them. And I think, it is that thing of like, what's the thing that makes people feel like, oh, only you could have done that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think the truth is like those numbers, they only mean so much. If you make $100 million off of your, 6-figure indie movie, sure, they're very excited about that. But like $200,000 versus $1 million, 500, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Or frankly, even $5,000.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and the only thing that I will say is that, like, because I think also it's hard for people. It takes practice and time to distill and find that thing that is so unique to you. No matter however that might come out for any individual filmmaker. So at the end of the day, bottom line is like, just make your movie however you can, whatever it is. Like, even if your first movie isn't the one, if you make it, it'll help you make the second one inevitably. Like, getting one will inevitably help, at least instill that confidence in you, knowing that you can do that next one and whatever that next one. But
and
you know what I mean?
Confidence in other people. Right.
And so like people can now, like, it's so weird. It's very surreal, but I can tell people I have two movies. Like, that will make people go like, well, that's somebody that can make a movie. And to some degree, I'm not saying it's going to get me a job handed to me, but
get lucky. You made 2 movies,
but it can't hurt. Yeah.
Can you tell us real quick? Do you have another feature on the
I don't
back burner, front burner?
I don't have anything that's like ready to go right now, unfortunately, or that's definitely happening. But I'm working on features on a few different ideas with both Parker, who I did West with, and Josh, who I did Keeping Company with, and I'm writing stuff individually as well. But we're with all of those projects, they're all in that development phase right now, and I don't have anything. I don't have my next feature that's like feels like it's going to happen right away just yet. Yeah.
Is there a place people can follow you to see what you're up to?
Yeah, my Instagram, which is at Devin P. Das, and that's also the same for my Twitter, actually.
DEVINPDAS.
DEVINPDAS. They can follow me there. I'll post about what I'm working on and probably photos of my dog.
Looks like you are promoting other podcasts on your Instagram.
I did. I had one drop today. I'll promote this one
from the Noah. Cut all of that plug, please.
Well, we won't say which one, but
okay, cool. You mind hanging out for an unpaid endorsement with us?
Let's do it.
Unpaid endorsement.
So it's been a minute since I've endorsed comics or basically anything I've read because I haven't been reading a ton. But I grabbed the Jonathan Hickman Fantastic Four Omnibus Volume 1, or just like Hickman's run of Fantastic Four, who, is like a pretty like hard sci-fi writer. He like really takes whatever franchise he's working on to like the most like whacked out, bizarro meta level that you can. And he did a run of X-Men like a year or two ago that I just like lost my shit over, where it was like literally the mutants had created like a totally different continent where they all lived together. Cyclops and Wolverine and Jean Grey were in a throuple. They were all mentally connected through like a hive mind. They'd been reincarnated multiple times over. It was just friggin' bonkers. Like truly, and like so exciting. And I endorsed that a while ago. So I was like, oh, his Fantastic Four run is pretty famous as well. So I picked it up on Kindle for $40. And it's been great and so weird. Comics, I feel like have had a long history of just like, what's the most psychedelic stoner version of sci-fi or like bleeding edge technology? Let's put that into a comic book. That's like, Kirby era stuff. And like they've been doing that, like Warren Ellis used to do that stuff. And I think Hickman has kind of taken over that crown. And so like the Fantastic Four is like a, you know, it's a family drama in a lot of ways, right? In most ways, they're the first family of comics of Marvel. But also, what if, you know, Reed Richards and Sue Storm's daughter was like a megalomaniac genius who was conspiring with her future self to work with Dr. Doom to kill her father, which is an actual plot in that story. Jonathan Hickman, maybe just as a general endorsement, but his Fantastic Four Omnibus Volume 1 is what I'm working my way through right now. It's great stuff.
Mine's a product, and it's a SodaStream. It's really, really good at making bubbles in your water, and and I can't. It's undeniable. And I have recently come into being a bubbly water drinker. I never was up until maybe summer of last year.
Statistically speaking, Americans were not until you know, around then, give or take. Right?
But yeah, that's true. I will say I don't like. I'm not like. I don't like. It's not that I don't like. I'll drink a LaCroix, I guess, but like I don't. I'm not like. I've never gone and bought cases of LaCroix or whatever. But last summer, I don't know who. I honestly don't even know what it's linked to. But at one point, a bottle of Mountain Valley Spring bubbly water, those green glass bottles, you know. I think I just grabbed one or something. I think I meant to grab a non-bubbly one, and I grabbed a bubbly one. And I don't know, it was just like a moment in time where it's like, that's exactly what I needed or something. And I drank that and I was like, oh man, this is good. And I just started buying them like regularly. Very beginning of this year, there was like a shortage of them. You couldn't, they were not in stock in any grocery store. And I was kind of losing my shit. I was like, where is my bubbly water? And I was going nuts. And I was like, well, I'm going to take control of this situation. And I did my research on the best carbonators, and I ended up with this one SodaStream, and I haven't looked back, and it's the best thing in the world.
I have endorsed and then unendorsed the Bug Assault gun before. It's a salt gun that you shoot at flies that I ordered and was very excited about, and it did not work at all. If you want
your house to be salty and also for there to be...
Oh, my wife made me throw it away because she gets like, anytime I shot a fly in the room, she's like, you got salt in my wine. Like,
I have never even heard of this weapon.
Bug Assault. Check it out.
It's weird they haven't taken off.
Well, you know what has taken off? The flies after I shoot them with this thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Anyway,
still alive. You don't want flies.
So two things, though. If you have flies in your house, in your backyard, this is an outdoor product. Home Depot sells these disposable fly traps that work amazingly well. Matt, now that you have a big yard and a house, I don't know if you have fly issues, but we do, potentially because there's dog poop sometimes in the yard. The other thing that I've bought, and I've been working on a solution for this for like 5 years, which is mosquitoes in our backyard. They like love me. We have these Asian tiger mosquitoes in Silver Lake, and like I get bit like 100 times every time I go outside. Supposedly something with my blood type or something. I don't know if that's a real thing or not, but I've gotten all sorts of traps and sprays and everything. And I've actually found one thing that works. You can get it at Amazon or REI or wherever. It's called a Thermacell E55 rechargeable mosquito repeller. It works. It's crazy. Don't use it indoors if you have dogs. That's all we got.
Love it. This was great, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us.
If you're listening to this, you can go on to Apple TV, Amazon Prime, Vudu, Google Play, I think, and Microsoft and rent Keeping Company. Google Keeping Company, and Google will help you out there. And then What Schlagenhauf is Dying is playing at Tribeca. You can watch it virtually starting on June 11th if you want.
Awesome. Well, congrats.
Thanks, guys.
Well, if you have any questions about indie filmmaking, if you want to tell us about your experience making films, getting distribution, if you think you should make a trailer for your film festival run, anything, we'd love to hear from you. Our email address is justshootitpod@gmail.com. You can also leave us a review on iTunes. You can find us across all social media at justshootitpod. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at SmiteyPyleg, and on Instagram, I'm at OKaplan.
And you can find me at Mr. Madamo across all social media. This episode was edited by Noah Bayshore. Thanks, Noah. You can check him out at Noah Bayshore, Bayshore with a Y on Instagram. Thanks, Noah. And you're listening to music provided by the Free Music Archive and the artist Jazar. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.